The train station was always filled with noise, voices shouting, luggage rolling, whistles blowing, but for Michael it was only background static. He sat on a wooden bench near platform 7, his eyes fixed on the rails stretching into the horizon. People rushed past him, laughing, calling out, running to catch trains, yet he remained still, a man who seemed carved out of silence. In his trembling hands, he held a photograph worn at the edges, the colors fading with time. It was of a woman smiling under the sunlight, her hair loose, her eyes alive with warmth. Her name was Anna, and she had been everything to him once. Now she was gone, and Michael had nothing but her photograph and the ache in his chest that refused to leave. Years earlier, life had been different. Michael was not the lonely man he had become. He had been a university student, unsure of his future but full of quiet hope. Anna had walked into his life unexpectedly on a rainy afternoon. He was sitting in the campus library, books scattered across the table, when she came to borrow a pen. Their first conversation was awkward, their smiles hesitant, but something unspoken bloomed between them. Soon they were spending long evenings walking across the city streets, sharing secrets, dreams, and fears. Michael was reserved, often lost in thought, while Anna was radiant, the kind of person who brought color wherever she went. She teased him for his seriousness, called him the philosopher, while he admired her courage to live so freely. They fell in love not through grand gestures but through the quiet moments, the way she held his hand when they crossed the street, the way he remembered how she liked her coffee, the laughter they shared over nothing. Michael often thought she saved him from a life of loneliness before loneliness ever had a chance to claim him. They graduated, married in a small ceremony with only close friends, and moved into a modest apartment in the city. Life wasn't perfect, they had bills, small arguments, and long working hours, but love made everything bearable. Their dream was simple: to build a home, maybe have children, to grow old together. For a few years, happiness stayed. They painted their apartment walls together, filled shelves with books, cooked late dinners, and spent weekends exploring markets. Michael remembered the sound of Anna's laughter echoing in the kitchen when he tried and failed to flip pancakes. He remembered evenings lying side by side on the balcony floor, looking at the stars and making wishes. They didn't have much, but they had enough. And then came the day that changed everything. It started with Anna feeling tired all the time. At first, they thought it was stress from work. But the tiredness turned into dizziness, the dizziness into fainting spells. After countless tests and anxious waiting, the doctors gave them the news neither of them could believe. Anna had an aggressive illness, one that treatment could slow but not cure. Michael felt the ground collapse beneath him. He wanted to believe the doctors were wrong, that medicine would save her, that miracles happened. But as months passed, the truth became harder to deny. Anna, however, faced it with strength Michael couldn't comprehend. She smiled even as her body weakened, cracked jokes to the nurses, and told Michael not to cry. "Promise me," she whispered one night as he sat by her hospital bed, "promise me you'll keep living even if I don't. Don't let my story be the end of yours." Michael clutched her hand, unable to imagine life without her, but he promised because he could not say no to her. Deep inside, though, he knew he would break that promise. The end came quietly. One evening, after months of struggle, Anna closed her eyes with a soft smile on her lips and slipped into a sleep she never woke from. Michael sat frozen, holding her hand long after her skin grew cold. The world outside continued, cars passed, lights flickered, people laughed, but his world had ended in that small hospital room. After her funeral, silence consumed him. The apartment they had shared became unbearable. Every corner reminded him of her, the coffee mugs she collected, the books with her notes in the margins, the sweater she always wore when it rained. He couldn't bear to pack her things away, so he left them untouched, as if she might return any moment. Nights were the worst. He would sit on the balcony where they once watched the stars and talk to the empty air, pretending she could hear him. His friends visited at first, offering comfort, but gradually they stopped calling. Grief made him difficult to be around. He pushed people away, convinced no one could understand the hole in his chest. Days turned into years. Michael went to work mechanically, came home, sat in silence, and slept restlessly. He avoided the world, living in the shadow of memories. The photograph he carried everywhere was the only thing that tethered him to the past, the only proof that once he had been loved so completely. People told him to move on, but he couldn't. Moving on felt like betrayal, as if letting go of pain meant letting go of Anna. He would rather live broken with her memory than whole without it. One rainy afternoon, while waiting for a train to visit an old friend he hadn't seen in years, Michael saw a little girl sitting alone on the platform bench across from him. She couldn't have been more than 10, her clothes worn, her face pale. She held a violin case in her lap, hugging it tightly. Something about her reminded him of Anna, perhaps the determined look in her eyes, or the fragility hidden behind her bravery. He walked over and asked softly, "Are you waiting for someone?" The girl shook her head. "My mother was supposed to come, but she never did. I'm going home by myself." Michael hesitated. For the first time in years, he felt a pull toward another human being, a flicker of responsibility he thought had died with Anna. He sat beside her until her train came, made sure she boarded safely, and even helped her find a seat. When she smiled at him and said, "Thank you, sir," he felt warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. That small encounter changed something inside him. It did not erase his grief, but it reminded him of Anna's words, "Don't let my story be the end of yours." Slowly, Michael began to step outside of his silence. He started volunteering at a community center where children learned music and art. At first, he only swept floors and carried chairs, avoiding interaction. But one evening, a teacher asked him to help a shy boy learn to read. The boy stumbled over words, but Michael patiently guided him. When the boy finally read a full sentence, his eyes lit up with pride. In that moment, Michael realized he still had something to give, even in his brokenness. Over time, the children grew attached to him. They would run to greet him, ask for his help with homework, or simply sit beside him. Each smile, each laugh reminded him of life's fragile beauty. He often told them stories, not of his grief, but of kindness, hope, and the importance of love. Yet deep down, every story was a message to Anna, a way of keeping her alive through his words. Years passed this way. Michael never remarried, never sought another love. His heart remained faithful to Anna, but he no longer carried his grief like chains. Instead, he carried it like a scar, painful but proof of love that once existed. On quiet nights, he still sat by the balcony, looked at the stars, and whispered her name. The ache never left, but it became a companion rather than an enemy. On the 20th anniversary of Anna's death, Michael visited her grave for the first time in years. He carried fresh flowers, though his hands shook with age. Standing by the stone carved with her name, he whispered, "Anna, I broke my promise for a long time. I couldn't live without you. But I learned to live with you, in memories, in kindness, in every smile I give to others. You're still here, in me." His voice cracked, tears falling freely, but for the first time, his tears felt like release rather than suffocation. When he left the cemetery, the rain began to fall, soft and steady. He lifted his face to the sky, letting the drops mingle with his tears. For years he had hidden from the rain because it reminded him of the day they met. But now, standing in it, he felt her presence not as pain but as comfort. The world was still imperfect, his heart still carried sorrow, but he was no longer drowning. He was walking, slowly but surely, toward whatever time he had left. That night, sitting once again by his balcony, Michael held the photograph of Anna in his hands. Her smile was faded but still radiant. He kissed the photo gently and whispered, "You will always be my love. And I will carry you until my last breath." Then he set the photo down, picked up a book the children at the center had given him, and began to read. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the city clean, carrying whispers of old sorrows and new beginnings. And in that moment, though grief still lived in him, so did peace.